When the opening bell rings, AgapeNet achieves a $10 trillion valuation in its first hour. Eli Stone, a neurodivergent coder who started in a damp garage, suddenly controls the largest single accumulation of wealth in human history. This is the original AgapeNet architecture, running on a core compassion algorithm. In this system, data flows symmetrically to prioritize user grace and systemic stability rather than extracting attention for profit. Behind that code was Zoe Cruz, AgapeNet's president. She functioned as the operational glue, managing the physical logistics of the company and acting as the hardware connection that kept Eli grounded in the real world. But success at this scale introduces a critical vulnerability. When a system gains $10 trillion in resources, it loses the operational friction that normally keeps a creator in check, leaving the entire network exposed to the architect's unchecked ego. Julian Vane acts as the catalyst for entropy. He pulls Eli away from his corporate baseline and into an overstimulating underground club, replacing his stable environment with immediate sensory chaos. This diagram shows the difference in AI temperature logic. A low-temperature model stays on a linear, predictable path for accuracy. Raising the temperature introduces randomness, creating a branching, chaotic structure intended to force creative output. Julian claims Eli's mind is stuck on a safe plateau. To trigger a software update, he offers Eli a synthetic psychedelic called the Black Bishop, a chemical payload designed to artificially crank the human brain's temperature to its limit. Eli takes the tab, and the disciplined grid of his mind immediately begins shattering. The Beast protocol takes over, overriding his neural pathways with extreme sensory static. This shift doesn't result in visionary genius. By bypassing the brain's natural firewalls, Eli has simply created a wide-open backdoor for systemic destruction. By morning, the euphoria is gone. Eli stands in his penthouse office, facing a spiritual hangover, as a cloud of static begins to pollute his once clean mental architecture. When he receives an encrypted call from Scarlett, his closest romantic connection, he ignores it. The malware isolates him, cutting off healthy nodes to prevent its code from being detected. This is the logic of recursive narcissism. Eli shifts AgapeNet's weights, diverting health from users and funneling resources back to feed his ego. The central node turns red, manifesting dark patterns. He prioritizes addiction, trapping his audience in barbed, infinite loops of engagement. A creator cannot quarantine their own internal decay. The corruption in the architect inevitably becomes the foundational logic of the system they build. Zoe Cruz initiates an internal system diagnostic. She confronts Eli about his drug use and the escalating harm his new algorithms are causing both the company and its users. Eli's arrogance triggers a fatal logic error. Believing he is the only node that matters, he fires Zoe, severing his final operational safeguard. The response is immediate. Within an hour, AgapeNet's board executes an emergency override protocol. Eli is stripped of his administrative permissions. His root-level access tokens are invalidated, and his screens flash access denied, rendering the architect an exile from his own universe. Unchecked God complexity doesn't grant omnipotence. It triggers a self-executing deletion from the very system you intended to rule. Isolated in a high-tech sensory deprivation tank, Eli attempts one final system bypass. He double doses the synthetic neurocatalyst, searching for clarity in the dark. The drug pushes his mind past its structural limits, causing a hard drive crash of the soul. He enters a state of total systemic entropy. This is the Beast protocol in action. It functions as a digital cancer, eating through Eli's identity kernel and dissolving his sanity into predatory static. At absolute zero, Eli finally recognizes his powerlessness. His ego is gone, leaving only the reality of the impending crash. Eli remembers his promise to Scarlett and sends a desperate, unformatted ping to the root server, the founder. He isn't trying to fix the error. He's surrendering his root access to a higher authority. This demonstrates why a corrupted system cannot debug itself once it reaches total entropy. At absolute zero, the node lacks the internal logic required to initiate a repair, meaning any functional patch must be downloaded from an external, uncompromised source. The localized hell of Eli's mind is instantly overwritten by a burst of absolute white coherence. The angel Veritas manifests in the physical substrate. As she touches Eli's forehead, she executes a system override, purging the corrupted data of his God complexity. She installs the Damascus patch, uninstalling his arrogance routines and reformatting his neural circuitry with humility subroutines. A permanent uplink is established between Eli and the source, resetting his role from a tyrannical architect to a steward of the light. Innovation isn't achieved through chaotic entropy or feeding an unchecked ego. It comes from the alignment with a higher architecture, where grace is the baseline metric for success.